Very good. So good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, April 28th. I'm calling tonight's meeting of the planning board to order at 5:31 p.m. Our first agenda item is going to be we'll do the review and approve minutes before doing the quick gavel in, gavel out of the public hearing, but we'll have to talk about dates then. So, regarding the minutes of our April 7th meeting, those were reviewed by me, circulated.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes from our April 8th meeting.
April 7th.
Second.
Okay, motion's made and seconded. All in favor in person, you can just raise your hand. So I have a 3-person quorum for the moment with Mike and Laura absent. Okay, so the next order of business is going to be, I learned something new about Mass General Law, that we're not allowed to have public hearings on election days, federal, state, and it turns out today, well, hopefully I voted. So
I did too.
So today is a town election day, so we're not going to be able to do the public hearing continuation today. We're simply going to gavel it in and discuss the continuation date. And I have a proposal. Okay, so for the purpose of the minutes, I'm calling to order the continuation of the public hearing to consider proposed amendment to the zoning bylaw concerning energy storage and solar energy facilities. So I'm calling that reopening it or continuing it at 5:33 p.m. Because of the conflict with the town meeting. We're going to simply continue the public hearing to another date. Well, we're going to discuss it and then move and vote.
Okay.
All right, so town meeting is coming up soon. My preference would be to get this done next week. Could people do a week from today, May 5th, Tuesday, May 5th?
Let's see.
How does that work for you, Gwen?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Everyone look at her, or right now, we're having a discussion about when we're going to continue the public hearing
Yeah.
too. We really can't wait until like the end of May.
Yeah, Rich.
And we can continue at any date that'll work for,
I'm good on May 5th.
Yeah, I'm good on May 5th too.
That should be good.
you
Yeah.
can be good too.
I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, everything should be fine.
Okay. Do you have any inkling about,
Laura will be back on Sunday night.
she'll be back on the 3rd,
Okay.
May 3rd, or this current
This Sunday night she'll be
Okay.
back.
So and we don't know about Mike Fahar. So,
There's no other meetings on the town calendar for that night. I
Yeah.
know he's on the agricultural commission. I think he's at CPA,
yeah, thanks for checking that.
so I don't see that.
Okay, good.
This is just crazy time of
Yeah,
year.
no.
He's doing the best he can. I think he missed one meeting last year because he was harvesting hay or silage or something, some night or something, but. That's what you do with a farmer on the board, but
Okay,
good having a farmer on the board. It's
so
worth the time.
if we know we're gonna have a quorum of 3.
Yeah.
Next Tuesday. Worst case. We continue it again,
Mhm.
but
We don't have
with
to
a quorum,
advertise
we
in the
can,
paper, right?
so.
But I have to
So. What we're gonna do,
bring a rule about how long the postponement has to be posted.
there's a total amount of time. For a planning board to act
Okay.
after opening a public hearing and.
Plus 48 hours.
But we do have to,
Yeah, I don't know.
we
It
do
could be.
have to,
It's, I think that was the assessor's board has to post by 48 hours.
48 hours.
Yeah,
yes, so we'll be able to post. A new agenda, so actually,
So, but
so for you, Gwen,
yes.
your task then. Will be to take tonight, you'll of course get a new Zoom link. So we're going to continue the public hearing to May fifth,
right,
but basically
we need to schedule it.
ASAP, we need to get a new agenda up,
Yeah, so,
right, like
Yeah.
tomorrow
yeah, that's
or
fine.
Thursday, right?
Okay, so
And so my guidance to you will be, we're just going to have a new agenda, just like the one we had for tonight, except we're not,
Yeah,
I guess we could review and approve minutes of tonight. If we have them by
right, so.
next Tuesday,
do a motion then?
we'll do the continuation. And
Yeah.
then the usual topics not anticipated and adjournment. So 4 items on the agenda for Tuesday.
Yeah,
May
so
5th.
minutes,
Almost there.
the hearing. And then
Yep,
you
so
said.
minutes, the same exact wording without the note.
Without the note.
bullet, yeah.
Yeah, without the bullet,
The main
okay.
bullet, the main item, and then, topics not anticipated and adjourned.
Yeah, Okay,
So
just
that'll
no-
be for Tuesday at 5:30. Tuesday, May 5th at 5:30 PM, be
Fine.
here or be square, so that would be,
Okay,
so let's
So
do
I make
it.
a motion that the Whately Planning Board postpone the hearing schedule, continue the hearing scheduled tonight due to conflict with the town election to Tuesday, May 5th at 5:30 PM.
Here
Here.
and on Zoom,
hearing,
Seconded.
okay, all in favor?
All in favor?
Okay, all right,
okay,
so we are now officially
Aye.
continued.
So we're not closing the public hearing.
We're not closing, we're just
We're pausing
continuing.
it, moving on to our next agenda item.
Yes, and before we do that, I just want to alert you. And this is not really. Of course, I've just gotten another update to the battery storage bylaws,
Yeah.
more stuff from town council.
Yeah.
Just fixing a few things. I had a discussion. So be aware that by next Tuesday, there's gonna be an updated draft of the bylaw. I'll circulate
Okay.
this to everyone, so we're not actually having a discussion that should have been within the public hearing, merely alerting you administratively to some new information that will be posted in advance. And there'll be thus a new draft of the battery storage bylaw that will be the focus of our conversation. Starting on Tuesday. Okay. Very good, and then we'll have a game plan for how to get things done for the town meeting. Okay. Next item, and now I'm gonna invite Megan Rhodes. I think you may wanna come, move your chair like closer, so you're.
Sure. Did
Yeah,
you get
you're-
the PowerPoint? or
I
you got
did,
it?
and I'm getting ready to just share my screen. So,
I'm a seizure right now.
Oh, there it is.
that slideshow.
Yeah, we're gonna put it on the screen.
Yeah. Okay,
All right, well, thank you for having me.
hello Megan,
We are near the finishing line for the comprehensive plan for the town.
why don't you just introduce yourself?
So-
Formally.
Will do. So I'm Megan Rhodes. I am the Livability Program Manager for the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. The town has received a grant to create a comprehensive plan. They've hired the FERCog to do the bulk of the work.
Yes.
With your input. So that's why I'm here today, because
Welcome.
we're wrapping up this process.
Okay.
Wrap your seat, I'm sorry, but okay. But I want to.
Yeah, you'll want it.
We voted on minutes.
Yep, good with me.
And we continue the public hearing to next Tuesday, May 5th.
and I just sent the email.
Okay, that's good, thank you.
All right.
Back to you, Megan.
Sure. So if we want to advance the next slide, I believe is the one more. Okay, so just as a quick update and overview of where we are in this whole process. Back in 2024, the town had gotten a separate grant to do a big visioning and public engagement process to understand what it is the town wants and needs over the next 15 or so, 20 years. Kind of a long-term vision for the town. So that was completed in 2024 with a survey that was sent out to all households. There was some open houses. And now we have a second grant to actually write a comprehensive plan, which is a long-term vision for the town, kind of a blueprint of what the town wants on a variety of topics over the next 10, 15, 20 years. And so that's where we are now. We have, we came to you in the fall with some of the completed chapters, which was agriculture, climate, energy, economic development, housing. We have now finished 4 more chapters and are putting together the whole plan together. So today I'm going to give you summaries on the community facility and services chapter, the open space and recreation chapter, the transportation chapter, and then kind of like the big meat potatoes of the plan, which is the land use and zoning chapter. That's kind of like the, for comprehensive plans, what towns really can do with the town is kind of shape where things can go on the landscape. And so that's kind of the big chapter of what the plan is going to provide for the town.
If I may ask
Yes.
you a leading question. Could you speak a little bit to the role you see, in general, a comprehensive plan playing in a town like ours? Like, and then you could even be more, and you may want to hold off until the land use chapter, but for example, how do you see a planning board using the information in a comprehensive plan? So give us a little.
Good question. So a comprehensive plan has no regulatory authority. It is merely an advisory document that provides information to the town as they make decisions.
And the planning board will have to vote to accept.
Yes,
Plan.
under state law, while it has no actual authority, each town is supposed to have a comprehensive plan, also called a master plan. And the planning board is it goes to the planning board to officially accept that as kind of the vision of the town. So that's kind of your
Okay.
official role in this.
Yes.
There's a couple ways that the comprehensive plan can be used. One is quite simply to help you guys get grant funding. So if we mention if a project or a goal or a need is mentioned in this plan, and a grant comes up, and you can use this as evidence that this has been a well thought out need, and this is why we need this bridge to be fixed, we need this park to be improved upon, we need, this zoning to be changed, and this is why we need municipal or state funding to help us with this. So that very simply is a really great tool and asset for the plan. So as you review the plan, either these chapters that I'm talking about today, or when it gets released for public comment, think about that. If there's a project you're like, shoot, I really wish that's mentioned here so we can get a grant for it somewhere down the line.
Okay.
That would be really important for us to know. But it also provides a blueprint for various boards and committees. So there's different chapters on all the different topics. And so what could happen is, the way we've also set up the plan is that there's very short summary chapters that kind of give you a quick overview of what's going on in transportation and our housing. Then there in the appendix are these very detailed technical reports, which we've sent to you for your review. That is where people, if you're interested in, say, the energy committee, they want kind of a punch list of what they need to do in town over the next 10 years. They can take that chapter and that technical report, and that's kind of what they can work from to understand of like, okay, we should probably prioritize this. Here's a project that we know is missing. Same for open space and recreation, for the open space committee, they want to like figure out what they need to work on next. They can use that as a guide. And then lastly, for the select board, as they make funding decisions, they can look at this, refer to this and say, okay, the town residents clearly wanted this in this plan. They wanted more public transit, for example. That was something that really did come out of the surveys. Maybe it's worthwhile to put some money into public transit. So that's how this comprehensive plan would be used.
Awesome.
Yep.
Very good. And just with a nod to you, JD, is there a chance you could take up the land use chapter first?
Sure.
In case one of our members needs to leave a little bit early.
Yep, yeah, so if you wanna skip through, there's a bunch of,
And we will yeah.
Yeah, we can go back.
We will go back. So we'll start here.
Okay, all right, so. We did a survey in 2024 and we got a very good survey response back. And it was very clear that residents, what they love about Whately is the small town feel. be able to have all the farms and these forests nearby, but also being able to be close to amenities and access to jobs, shopping, things like that. What people did want was to really maintain that small town feel and focus on agriculture, keeping that a strong part of that town's identity. But they also want and acknowledge that more housing needs to be created in town. There's just not enough affordable housing. A lot of it is very expensive housing. And they would like some more commercial development, one, to support the tax base, and two, people want to be able to stay in town and get some coffee or go to a restaurant or do some other options. So there is desire for some commercial development in town. The town had commissioned an interchange 35 market analysis last year, or 2 years ago, to understand what can be done in that area of the exit on I-91. And that showed that there is some potential there, although it's fairly limited, particularly under current zoning right now. And so that is something that rezoning that area may need to be examined. Okay, so go to the next slide for me. So what we did in this chapter is we try to understand what's going on in town now. Can people really want to keep that small town feel and the emphasis on agriculture, but can that actually happen under current zoning? Because right now, what does the future look like is what we wanted to do some scenario planning. While there hasn't been much development recently in Whately or much of Western Mass, that is not necessarily how things are going to continue in the future. We're already seeing trends of people moving here from Boston, from Eastern Mass, from other populated cities, because this is affordable housing here compared to other areas in the country and the state. You are on a major highway, you're very accessible to other places like Amherst, Northampton, Springfield. You also have a lot of easily developable land, which is farmland. So despite the fact that you don't have sewer, it's not unrealistic that you could start experiencing over the next 10, 15 years, very high development pressures. So we wanted to understand if that pressure comes, what will happen to the landscape in Whately. So we did a couple of scenarios. One, we looked at a build out analysis. We looked at all of the vacant land in town and how it was zoned to see how many more units, residential units, could be built. Then we looked at an infill analysis where there are already existing homes, could additional homes in the form of accessory dwelling units be built on those lots. And then because you are bordered by two towns with sewer that have excess capacity in their sewer treatment plants, and both towns have expressed a willingness or an interest, potential interest in expanding that sewer, we wanted to see what that could look like in Whately. So yes, please stop me anytime.
Did you take into consideration the land that's agriculture protected, that we have lots?
Hold that thought, go to the next slide. Yeah, so let me go into the details now of this build out analysis.
Sure.
So what we did for that was we identified any buildable vacant lots in town. But to do that, we took off the table anything that's permanently protected, anything that has like agricultural preservation restrictions on it, anything that has wetlands or steep slopes or anything environmentally or regulatory you can't build on. If it had existing residential units on it already, we took that off because we only wanted to look at parcels that didn't have anything on it right now. So that does leave on the table currently farmed parcels that may not be permanently preserved. And then we looked at whether they had sewer or not, because your zoning is determined by whether there's a presence of sewer or not.
Public water.
Public water. Thank you for clarification. And then because it's very unlikely that every parcel is gonna get developed to the full maximum potential, we decided to cut that full potential by half. Parcels may not have enough frontage, or there may be, other issues, some wetlands that we weren't able to account for, or they couldn't perk, things like that. So we reduced that by 50%. When you do that, it shows that an estimated 340 units could be built under current zoning. You currently have around 700 units in town right now, existing homes, 700 homes in town. So you would be That's a lot more housing that could be developed in town, if nothing changes right now with your zoning regulations.
And that's agnostic to water capacity for those that would be on water and, you know, other kinds of capacity.
Right, this is just
Yep.
regulatory, what does zoning allow right
Yeah.
now?
Got it.
So then if you go and if do you have any questions?
I-
Yeah,
Curious, the cost for sewer, how would that be financed through taxes? If
let's
they
hold
go
that
there,
topic.
How would they do it
Yeah.
like a CDD and, you're right, okay.
Yeah, I'll get into that. I mean, to some extent, but that is an important question.
Yes,
Okay, so next slide. So for the infill analysis, right now, the state has passed a law that says any home can add accessory dwelling unit to it by right. So technically, because you have around 700 homes in town, legally, each one could build an accessory dwelling unit. That is very highly unlikely and never going to happen. Particularly because you don't have sewer right now, and the cost of adding maybe an extra bedroom on a septic tank is quite expensive. So we assumed only maybe 10% of those existing homes might ever add an accessory dwelling unit, as there's a potential scenario. So that adds 70 new units to your town. So when you combine 70 new ADUs plus the potential build out of 340 new units, you could potentially, under current zoning regulations, see 410 new potential housing units at some
Over
point,
some,
over some time frame. And that, you know, it could be more, it could be less. This is just kind of a ballpark to give you an idea of what maybe could happen. So then if you go to the next slide, so 400 is a lot if you only have 700 homes in town, and that could, if you assume an acre per home, just say it's a rough, just a random acreage assumption, that would consume a lot of land in town. You would have to say goodbye to a lot of your farming. And actually it should go back, well, you don't have to go back, but there was a table earlier. We did an analysis and there's a lot of details in the technical report of that build out that could happen, where does that occur? And 62% of that potential buildable area is either active farmland or is mapped as having biomap poor habitat, which is sensitive environmental resources. So a lot of that land is either special to Whately because it's farming or because it's very sensitive environmentally. So if you just kind of assume an acre per parcel or per unit, that's a lot of land. A lot of your farming and sensitive environmental areas are going to be consumed and that general pattern continues.
which it kind of has, hasn't it?
Sorry.
Which it kind of has.
Yeah.
Being a realtor from Florida, my best customers were farmer people who had sold their land. They were land rich and cash poor, and down they would come all over the country. Wouldn't that change the makeup of this town and dramatically,
Very much so.
and not desirably?
Right.
Okay.
So that's why we then said, okay, if development is gonna come, probably will eventually. And we know that the current zoning regulations allow this, well, how can we conserve land in a more denser way to allow for the growth? Because we know we do need housing. You have a 0% vacancy rate. People cannot move to town. Your school has been declining in enrollment and it's really been only kind of stable because people have been choicing in. You're not getting students from town. How do we maintain a sustainable population and tax base? We know we need housing. People would like some commercial development. How can that all happen? And so we thought, okay, well, we do have neighbors with sewer. What could that happen? And so what we've done in the technical report is we've mapped potential lines that could extend from Deerfield and Hatfield, from the south and the north, to see where those lines could conceivably go. This is all very high conceptual, just to see, and then just how many more units could be built on those, or how can we combine, like what areas would it impact? It's very high level conceptual only. We did look at a variety of routes those sewer lines could run. Just from a regulatory perspective in terms, so for example, for Hatfield, the easiest route would be extended where it's already kind of heading north into Whately. But if you extend it along that line, which I forget the name of the street,
River Road, I
River
think it
Road.
is.
I think so. A lot of that land is permanently preserved for agriculture. And so spending the money and sending it up that road really doesn't make any sense. So we ran it up 5 and 10 instead, and just to understand what that could look like. So it's a very high level, but it provides a conversation starter. You know, it is very expensive. It is very, very expensive to extend sewer. And there are grant sources, there is funding sources, there are loans you could get. And there are programs in which you can get even reduced loan rate, interest rates on that the town could be potentially eligible for. So there are funding mechanisms, but that's a very big ask for a town that's very small.
And Hatfield just put it, they expanded their sewer on West Street, and they put in, I don't know, a half-mile sewer, if that, and it doesn't work, they freak it all out and redo it.
Yeah, so hopefully, if it were ever to be expanded, you would do it right the first. Yeah, that's a
They
problem.
spent millions, and just made everyone, so this, they know it's gonna get dug up again.
They have to go back, yeah,
The cost for me one more.
The state approved that too.
But
it's not good.
could you tell me the cost one more time?
I don't have a cost.
Cause they did it in Florida, it was 25,000 a person to get sewers to your house, and it would allow you to finance it through a community development district special bond.
You mean to actually hook up to the, like for a
Hook up
residential owner to
5,000,
hook up?
but everyone got hit with $25,000 tax bill, but they could finance it over 30 years.
Yeah. So there are different programs and you don't have, so if a line were to be extended, say a 5 and 10, you don't have to, the way I've seen it in other places here in Massachusetts is no one is gonna require me to hook up and pay that 25,000. You only have to pay that if you actually want to hook up.
That's it.
And then you do have these programs available. And to honestly, you know, it's kind of, that cost is equivalent to replacing your septic system when it's ready to go. And so there's
Yeah.
ways to think about it that way.
And the other way they did was in Florida, what they did was they said, okay, you don't have to join, but when you sell your house, you're gonna.
Oh, interesting.
That's gonna be your bill.
Yeah.
I guess it's negotiable, but the contract said it wasn't.
I have heard that it's not required here,
Okay.
but that would be something to look into.
Well, perhaps not, but I was just curious as to how this all plays out over the long term, because it's not free.
No, it is certainly not. It is a big ask for a town,
It is.
but it's something to start
Nothing's free.
thinking about because you do have this potential future that does exist.
Yes.
Did you have a question or comment?
Well, I'm just confused how other businesses on 5 and 10, aren't they already connected to it? Or where's that going?
They have septic tanks.
Yeah, the way-
All
that's
businesses?
okay.
Yeah,
Within us,
Oh,
That's not,
Everything's a septic. rate.
8 years ago, they
see,
spent
I didn't know that.
huge money having, because they have like a grease part to their septic system. Yeah, it would cost a lot of money pre-COVID.
even Yankee Candle there, as I said.
Yeah.
Wow, really?
So as a member of the.
But if their sewage smells really good.
you need growth.
We need.
That's good to know.
So Whately Finance Committee, we're getting to the point where we're going to need an override soon, I think. And the town needs new growth. And it really needs
Can't grow with something.
commercial growth, and not residential growth, but it needs it. We need to expand our commercial base. Well, finance point of view.
Yeah.
Need it.
It's very interesting.
So, and then, you know, there are other alternatives. You don't have to go the sewer route, or you could go from one town, not the other. There are, you know, package plants. There are other alternative systems that aren't on site like your traditional septic for that parcel. There are other technologies that the town could look into. So, so these is something to think about though. If you want development, if you want growth, and if you know we need new housing and we want to protect farms, something the town is gonna have to start grappling with. So the land use, so that is, okay, so go to the next slide. Oh, no, so, okay, so go back. So, that chapter, the land use chapter provides that scenario analysis, and that does make a series of recommendations regarding zoning that the planning board can then take and kind of use that as a checklist, punch list of like, you know what? We didn't prioritize any of the recommendations because it really depends on times change, grant funding becomes available, so we didn't want to prioritize it, but you can take that list and say, based on this, what we see coming, this might be the most important thing we need to work on this year or the next 3 years. But it does provide some very specific recommendations on zoning. In terms of commercial development, you can rezone. One of the things we talk about is you can certainly rezone areas as commercial zoning to allow for that growth. We think that, and that's an option, another option is also mixed use zoning. That allows more flexibility so that whoever, you're not confined to one particular type and waiting for that one developer to come in and create that one thing that you need. Mixed use allows more of a variety. There's a hesitation of like, I don't want a home next to a commercial property. And another third or additional option is to look at form-based zoning, and that is rather than regulating this is commercial, this is residential, you regulate how it looks. And so you might have a gas station or a store that has that small town feel that looks kind of more homey and fits in more with the characters. You're driving, it's not so glaring that this is a gas station or not that that's just an example of a use. Or a bank.
Ours, what we allow right now for commercial uses is very much a not in my backyard attitude about what comes on. Like, we don't allow car washes. But if we have a self-contained system that recycles the water, why wouldn't we have one? Because it doesn't put kids in the school, it'll catch on fire, and they generate a toxic. Okay, we apparently, I've been on the subject, we don't allow drive-through because lately, that's why.
Drive-through.
But I thought you said there was nowhere where it says it's on
Trust them.
Gotcha.
Yes, I think there's some language, there's some way in which drive-throughs are explicitly prohibited.
Yeah, Dunkin' Donuts, which is technically in Whately.
Yeah.
Because that gas station is split right
Yeah,
there,
right,
they can't have that.
Yeah.
When they put that in, they weren't allowed, and it was like a big.
yeah,
Can't get
The
that.
whole part of the exit 35 overlay,
yeah,
what Whately needs there,
yeah,
we don't need food trucks, we don't need rec cars. We need a commercial pharmacy with a drive up and Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, that's what we need there. Maybe car wash,
Truck wash.
something like that.
yeah.
True.
We have to drive 10 to 15 minutes to the nearest Rite Aid, Walgreens, CVS, whatever, that would thrive in that location.
And this is sort of why we may, well, having this exit 35
Yeah.
overlay district and rezoning, it's not something we organically are gonna be able to pull off ourselves.
I understand.
So this is where making sure that's in the comprehensive plan and that's our evidence for grant funding and other things.
Because the prior part of these 35, and I have not seen all the documents.
Yeah.
They had a questionnaire about things, there's a big thing about recreation space and food trucks, gathering spaces. The town needs foundations to pay taxes.
Yeah,
That's what the town needs. We need a building that pays taxes, because we need the tax revenue. Food trucks don't pay taxes. Not the tax revenue that the town needs. Or we're gonna lay off school teachers. That's the reality of it.
so I'm just gonna make a comment to you all before we continue with this, because I want you to hear this before you have to leave. So one of the things I'm gonna circulate to all of you after tonight via email. So I've been, we're about done with battery storage. Believe it or not, we're gonna get that in for town meeting. And
You always had a sense of.
now, and after town meeting, it's not like battery storage in the version 2. So I've put together a document I'm gonna circulate to all of you to start thinking about. I've enumerated a set of project ideas for us to tackle in the year ahead, thinking to 2027 town meeting. And so I'm gonna circulate that with some guidance, but this is why looking at this land use chapter, thinking about it, because I'm gonna be asking you, here's my list of 10 projects, we'll prioritize, but if there are things that are not on the list that you think should be on the list and should be higher priority for work. Because none of us, we didn't run for this office, right? We didn't come in on a platform. So we have to kind of have a group process to identify what are the things we want to do going forward, all right? So I just wanted to kind of plant that seed. And we're gonna probably end up starting to work through that list and
Sure.
as we get through town meeting.
Good idea, right?
And then just in case you need to leave, I do want to mention, so we're wrapping up all these chapters, we're putting the plan together, we're gonna send postcards out to every household. I think they're gonna arrive by May 18th is what we have planned so far. With a link to the draft plan for people to then read it, send us comments. And then on there are also dates for open houses. We're going to have a in-person open house at the library Saturday, June sixth, I believe. We're gonna have a free ice cream truck for everyone to get free ice cream.
Oh, well, I'm there.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. June sixth, yeah. It's gonna be 11:30 to 1:30. There'll be the ice cream emergency truck. And you'll be able to review the plan, provide comments, anyone in town, so please spread the word.
So look, it's just that I understand how this works. This plan is giving us advisory how we want to shape the community for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We passed this, it's not rewriting our zoning bylaws, it's advising how to do things. But it gives us advice, say, we want to write an exit 35 overlay district, we can do that, incorporate some of these things in to make it more attractive to developers to do things.
Exactly, and it comes with the backing of a year of public engagement that says that residents seem to want these things.
Okay.
And then we'll have done this process. Not only have I been presenting these draft chapters to you, but I've also been presenting to the select board for their comment and feedbacks.
Okay.
And then we're going back out to public comment. Every household's gonna get a postcard, an opportunity to review and provide comment, and we'll have the open house. So it'll come with kind of that authority of the town supports this.
So one of the questions I have, are you working with any other communities the same type of projects?
On
The same type of comprehensive plan like you.
We just finished Montague's last year, and then we're potentially gonna be helping some other
Are
towns.
there any pitfalls or successes or any thing that we need to know or?
No, I think it's
any
important.
feedback?
No, I think it went well, and I think because we made sure we checked in with the town residents on a regular basis. So it seemed to jive. We never got any feedback there, like, this is totally off base, no way.
Okay.
We seemed to be, it reflected what the town wanted, so hopefully that this is also going to be doing that.
Good deal, thank you.
We have in every chapter of the plan, they're very short, the actual chapters are very short summaries of the topic, but each one is a sidebar with quotes from people's survey results, kind of reinforcing and highlighting what we heard from people. So it's woven throughout the plan of what people think about this topic. So hopefully that's true.
Great.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All right, so back to community facilities
Yeah.
and services.
You have to.
I'll stick on.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, facilities.
So, each of these chapters and topics were developed with input from a variety of communities and people in town and builds on these survey results. A lot of this probably won't be much of a surprise to you guys, but, several of the buildings in town are in need of accessibility improvements, energy upgrades, and some major maintenance. The center school building has been posing a challenge to redevelopment, and it might continue to, specifically if there are very strict rules about how it can be used. That might be a barrier to it being redeveloped. The highway department definitely needs a new building, one with heat would be nice.
I'm on the building committee for that, and we're trying to relocate it's a 3-pronged approach here. We're trying to relocate the transfer station to another site across the street in town hall. They have the buildings next to it. We're trying to obtain this building frontage, so we're trying to dump the transfer station across the street to get out of the highway department area. And we had a property survey done, so we know where the building is gonna go. I came on the board earlier this year, and the previous board wanted to put the highway garage, spending millions of dollars on the ball field, which is being nice. It was not in the best interest of the town because that field gets used all the time by children. When the fire.
It's early. They were gonna.
No, this is the field between the highway garage. and
Oh,
the fire station.
yeah, that,
They wanted to put the building on that field,
Which is also where their septic is, no?
but that's where
yeah,
kids play ball.
that's right.
The fire department has functions there.
That's
It's a
right.
valuable community meeting space. So we're gonna put it where, we're trying to put it where all the dump and all the dirt piles are right now, opposite the police station. And we can't afford to build a $5 million plus
No.
building. So what we want to do
Nor do we need
is
one.
move the police department
Okay, that's fine.
here.
Yeah.
In the back, and the police department becomes the administrative side of the DPW, and we just have to build a storage garage. Because the building already has offices, lunchroom, bathrooms, lockers, it has everything that all the employees need is already there, I already own it, it's already built, you just need a building to put trucks in.
And so that's what we recommend on the next slide, actually, if you wanna flip to that.
So that's what
Should
we're
move
going
the police station to South Deerfield, call it South County Police. That's what it should
All
have.
right, we're gonna keep on track here.
So consolidate operations into current municipal buildings, police to the town offices, and a highway to the police station is what we've recommended. I did not know about the transfer station. But we can add that.
We're working on, Fred Barrett is talking to the state to see if it's allowed use because we own the land across the street. They're trying to get it's a big problem with residents where the DPW is in the mix of all their stuff. They're trying to run a DPW, people coming in and out twice a week. They're trying to get their own resident spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And across the street makes great sense.
And so in terms of other community facilities, services, people are very interested in, integrating energy efficiency, which you guys are already doing with solar panels here and other, as you upgrade buildings, just continue to provide more energy retrofits to, reduce long-term maintenance and operating costs. Town residents really enjoy Hurley Park and the recreational facilities and services that you have. The people were very interested though in waterfront access. We'll get a little more of this into the open space and rec chapter, but access to water, particularly the Connecticut River, potentially at Hurley Park, was mentioned quite frequently. And then people loved the programming that was held during was it the bicentennial celebrations? The three, whatever the number is. The 250, yeah. And they wanted to bring more of that type of programming back, having those type of interactive services with residents.
Hurley Park needs to be expanded. I just built a dugout project down there for the kids. And there's a little narrow patch of land up on the road frontage that belonged to an elderly man across the street who passed away. The family were trying to convince them to sell to the town. Because then they'll be able to put a sidewalk in up to the main road to get ice cream, kids can walk back and forth. They have money, the streets, there's some money there to do that.
Yeah.
And they need to expand Hurley, perhaps the field behind the house next door. The house next door, possibly we could use some housing funds to buy it, make it a housing trust could use that, but we need the land. Hurley is packed all the time.
Is it to the left
To the
of Hurley Field or
south.
to the south?
Yeah, but they wanna add like
To the right when you're
They
looking.
wanna add like or something with rec commissions, they wanna add like a tennis, pickleball court, they wanted a basketball court for the kids.
Right.
And other fields, the place is mobbed all the time,
Yeah.
there's people there all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So we knew about,
Great place.
some of those expansions that's mentioned.
Yeah,
And in the transportation chapter, we talked about sidewalk
yeah,
connections there.
so they're building a swing set down there for the kids. So
Oh,
if you
great.
wanna watch it, they've got a swing set for the kids to be there while their brothers or sisters who play the game or something.
Early?
Yeah.
Hey, that would be awesome.
They got it putting it
For kids.
I know, but my
That's
kids,
gonna be right next to the pavilion.
really?
Yeah, they got one for it.
That's like new, that's new, that's just happened?
Yeah,
We were
just
there with
pulled-
soccer, yeah,
Just pull the old stakes out, fence posts and stuff out, so they can put
that's
it,
amazing.
they put it in.
Yeah.
So then we kind of already started touching on the open space and rec. A third of the town is already permanently protected. Another quarter is temporarily protected under chapter 61, which allows, says no development in exchange for tax exemptions, but that is renewed year by year. The tax, people in town are very supportive of CPA. It's been used very effectively for, a lot of it's been for protection of farmland. And people in this town obviously very much value farms. In terms of recreation, people come from all over the state and wider to bicycle on Whately's roads and the region's roads. And so that is, as you know, it's a very popular, great destination for bicycling.
And no public restroom.
And it's an opportunity for people to come here, spend money. If we had more commercial uses, and then if they had some bathroom facilities, that was something to capitalize on. People want more trails and water access and more information on existing opportunities. That last one, though, is being addressed. The FERC actually has a grant where, there's gonna be a statewide website of every outdoor recreational asset in the entire state. And right now, we're taking pictures of every trailhead and providing information, so everyone will eventually have all that information. But residents did wanna know more about what does already exist in town.
I do know, and I'm not, a lot about this, there's quite an extensive a snowmobile trail system in Whately, but I don't think it's open to people outside of the small businesses that don't have a sand pass.
Yeah.
There's,
Wait, say it again,
there's snowmobile trail.
Snowmobile,
I don't have.
okay, got it.
There's trail networks throughout
Yep.
Whately to get from A to B across town.
Yeah.
But I don't think like Brand can take his mountain bike and go on those trails in the off season. I think you would have to
Usually they have agreements with the property owners to only be used during certain times.
I would think we wanna make sure that the trails are. They can open to the public all the time and not just because it's snowmobile trail doesn't mean you can go down it. Right, does that make sense?
Yeah, cause it's seasonal.
I don't know how
Yeah.
realistic that is though, like for my example would
You
be,
want some trails for your property.
yeah, it goes through the farm, but in the. Like in the winter, there's no cows in the field,
Okay,
in the summer there is,
I'm not gonna go
so no
through there.
bicycles, sorry,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I like cows at a distance.
because there's a whole bunch of trails behind Whately Recreational Church, there's tons of trails out there. A lot of them snowmobile trails, so.
No, I think that's for walking now, isn't it?
I know what you're talking about.
There's
There are
Kestrel
trails.
All right.
Kestrel trails, but behind the church, like you can take some trails.
We're gonna try to keep this
Okay.
going.
All right, we're gonna.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide, people do value the environmental features here in town, and so because you do have a lot that does exist in town, but you have also a need for some development, really kind of try to prioritize where exactly do you want to conserve land and other lands that may be marginal and you may not want to prioritize as much. Agritourism has been coming up in a variety of different varieties, and open space and recreation was one of them. That's agritourism is any type of diversification of a farm that brings people to a farm for either education or tourism, such as a winery or a farm stand, ice cream. Exactly. And people really enjoy that. A lot of people come and spend a lot of money in our region for those type of things, and capitalizing on that would be a really great way of celebrating Whately. Yeah.
Well, playgroup does that. Union 38, they do that. They go, we went to playgroup at the Sunderland Farm. There's a farm there, and that would be great if people would do that more.
I mean, Mike's Maze is another great example of agritourism.
Yeah.
Needs it all.
But yeah, they have programs that they allow little kids to go there and you can get grant funding and stuff like that. This is what we did for a couple times. I forget where it is, but it's in Sonoma.
This is your early park.
Yeah,
improvements.
so we have specific recommendations that I think what's mentioned.
Fantastic.
Making sure those get mentioned so we can get grant funding. Okay, next.
I do, Chris, it's not that you guys help, but like, the people are very well intentioned what they're gonna do with this, they don't look at the long term effects of ancillary things. They're pretty big at creating pollinator gardens right now. So they go to the elementary school,
Okay.
kids could be allergic to bees.
It's true.
Why would you put a pollinator garden at the elementary school? Wouldn't you put it across the street, or like a place where there's a whole bunch of kids that might be allergic and go into anaphylactic shock? That's the last.
Do you have a nurse on site?
I guess the question is, our kids like,
All the pollinator gardens, but don't put it in elementary school.
I think usually like the vast majority of pollinators that are attracted are the honeybees that don't necessarily sting. Just that, and butterflies are also pollinators.
Yeah, and bats, surprisingly enough.
So transportation.
Transportation, this is pretty straightforward. You've got culverts and bridges are aging. You've got some that are closed or down to one lane. They need to be fixed. Basically is that, a lot of infrastructure is going to be needed replaced and fixed over the coming years, and it's expensive. One of the things that is gonna be needed is investment by town to get those projects teed up for when there is grant funding available. So getting some preliminary designs or doing the engineering studies. Providing some outlay to get those up and running so that when a grant does come around, you're ready to go and get the actual construction funds. Transit was a really big topic in all of the engagement. People really want to use the bus in public transit more, particularly older adults. The bus does run every hour on 5 and 10, so it is actually quite usable if you can get there. And that is the hard part for Whately, is for most of the town, you have to get to 5 and 10. By the time you're already there, you might as well just stay in the car and drive someplace. So while you do have very frequent fixed route transit, it's not actually that usable. So thinking about how to expand that. And there is already, have a very good demand response program and some other, services from the FRTA. But a lot of people don't seem to know about it, especially the older, residents. And so making sure that people are aware of that information, marketing that information, could be a step that the town can easily take to capitalize on what you already are paying for.
We do have rides available from senior center. They have a van to transport seniors. They offer a lot of rides. So
They do.
That's basically what they do. I wanted to go back briefly about the roads, the public transportation. One of the biggest challenges that we have is Whately is somewhat of a low income community. So there's very few people that live in Whately, work in Whately, they travel everywhere. Therefore, they require nice, clean, highly salted roads to get to their jobs in the morning. And we spend lots and lots of money on salt on roads, which we do. We grew up with sand. Like, what we had sand on roads, and the sand we played was the best. We dumped lots of salt, and the salt destroys the roads. I think Garrett said a paved road lasts like 10 years. That's the life cycle of paved road because the salt just destroys them. What we demand as taxpayers that we have beautiful, dry, safe, treated roads in the winters. We can't have it both ways. You can't. But we're also with the groundwater and terribly involved with salt.
That's why all the trees are dying along the edge of the road.
Because we're dumping so much. The state literally dumps salt on Route 5. It's 40 degrees out right now. Oh, because I live on Route 5. It's about they dump. It's just.
We put out a recommendation that, explore reducing salt use.
I don't, there's alternatives. There's other deicers that are not as corrosive.
Yeah, I think I read something like in Sweden, it's using beets.
Yes.
People do that here.
That's what they
Yeah,
do.
they don't use salt in
That's what they
Oregon
treat
or
our salt.
other places where they get lots of snow.
Because rock salt stops working like 15 degrees. So they treat it with beet juice and mag chloride.
The chloride's what rots your car and everything. That's what's really bad. It's the calcium chloride.
But we live in this day where we have to black roads. If you go in other parts of the country, they don't use silted use.
I don't know if you've ever been on 91 during a snowstorm, but as soon as you get into Vermont, it's just not plowed.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
There's like 2 trucks and they go from
Well, I've
the
all-wheel
border
drive.
to the course. Yeah,
But
it's
that's
like a
what
totally
we pay.
different
We're
world.
paying a fortune to rebuild roads. We're paying a fortune for.
Yeah.
Those are interesting community conversations, right? That's
So,
what.
I don't know what
Level
the
of
answer is.
gross yeah.
I don't know what the answer is, but that's the
Yeah.
big challenge.
Yeah. Other
Okay,
things on this?
yeah.
Okay, so these are.
Yeah, it basically, so, one of them was, more sidewalks, including to Curly Park, there's connections there. And then better, in terms of maintenance of like long-term lifespan of roads, for your unpaved roads, there are techniques that you can employ to better maintain those for longer periods of time. We're actually gonna be working with your highway super this summer to look at some of the roads to see if there's ways to do that better. Okay, that's transportation.
And I think that was, then we
That's it,
got to
yeah.
this, so we got to.
So that's the remaining topics.
Yeah.
And look for a postcard in your mailbox soon about the actual whole, it's getting formatted right now, and put together.
So opportunities to, so I think. I went ahead and sent you a marked up copy, so that's what, you can email comments to Megan. I forwarded the message with her, or you got an email with these slides.
I didn't get a PowerPoint, I just got to track.
Okay, I will forward with the slides to everyone, so you also will have Megan's email. So you can feel free to email comments back to her or participate in any of these comment sessions.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
I have one quick question. It sounds like the people in town want Whately to have a small town feel with all of the stuff that small towns don't have. How realistic do you, it's like I want my cake and eat it too or whatever. How realistic do you think it is they're gonna be able to put a plan together that's gonna satisfy all that? It just doesn't seem, to me, like.
Well, that's, I think kind of the main takeaway of the plan is that you have some hard conversations you're gonna have to have the next couple of
Right.
years. So we've kind of laid out, like, it's very clear that the town needs more housing. If you wanna have a sustainable population, you have to build more housing, but how are you gonna do it? What is your zoning regulations gonna allow? We provided some strategies, some zoning recommendations to, allow duplexes by right,
Yeah.
But that's gonna be a conversation you're gonna have as you amend the bylaws and bring it to town meeting.
Yeah. It's a perfect place to build a house is where both of you live,
Yeah,
cause you can't farm it,
We can't,
it's sand.
right.
So,
it's good to know.
it's, yeah, so anywhere you see a bunch of pine trees growing, build there,
There's another.
that's my recommendation.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I've thought about this too, like, there are these, like, let's just take something really controversial, let's suppose you propose to change zoning to reduce minimum, frontage requirements.
Sure.
Or reduce lot sizes so that so land could be, there could be denser development. That we can make that recommendation and bring something to annual town meeting, and I think it'd be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
Whether people would support it or not. I like the idea of even just trying toe dipping with allowing two-family as of right. Like right now, it's allowed, you have to get a special permit from the ZBA. You have to get a special permit to convert a single family into a two-family, right? So why do we need a special permit requirement? Why do we need that additional
Right.
hurdle? I don't know. But
Yeah, I can think of a couple of perfect examples of off of that, so.
Yeah.
I know a property that all said to be a two-family, it's how
Yeah.
and all it's doing is for the town.
so what I find really interesting, so I know we're going a little bit longer back, but like when I came onto this planning board in 2020, it was never clear to me, really, kind of, I was like you, I just joined the planning board, like, join the board, like, and I'm trying to figure, what does this planning board, how does this planning board operate? Like, who determines what the planning board is going to do? It turned out in those days, there was like one member who seems, will just,
We can all get.
seemed to drive the agenda, and that person had their ideas and all that, but, and it may have been guided or informed by a comprehensive, though we haven't had an accepted comprehensive plan. Like the last effort to do a comprehensive plan apparently never got accepted. All right, so now I think it's really interesting for us to try to use our best judgment as residents and people who are privy to this plan and think about what do we think would be good for the town. But ultimately, most of these, except for certain housing amendments, anything that we bring to annual town meeting that represents a zoning change requires a 2/3 majority vote at annual town meeting. So there has to be a large community support. And I'd like, and I've been weighing whether I tend to feel like if we bring something to town meeting, like we're doing with the battery storage bylaw, and it doesn't easily pass with whatever the majority is required, then we've done something wrong. But we don't get a whole lot of people coming to our meetings either.
No,
We
but I
don't-
do think a lot more people go to town meeting.
Yes,
When I was a little kid, a lot of people went to town meeting.
right,
When I graduated high school, no one went to town meeting, now it's coming back.
yeah, well, so that's, I think we may, over the coming year, decide where we wanna. Put our sword in it, not fall on our sword, but put a stake in the ground and say, we wanna develop this idea. We think it may be controversial, but maybe based on this plan.
Feedback, it's not.
Now we have something
Yeah.
to motivate and say, look, it's not just 4 or 5 crazy people who think.
What the people want.
It's what we think our best understanding of what the rest
We've
of
been
it.
so restricted in what we allow outside of residential uses. Commercial, industrial, and commercial, that people are going for, the home-based business. And they're stretching the limit of
Yeah.
exactly what it could be.
Yeah. the
And
home
they
occupation.
push it and people aren't noticing, all of a sudden, you've got a barn out back that you're not using, that you're renting to her, and she's running a craft shop out of there, it's a
Yeah.
commercial use, but no one's complaining, it's been there for 20 years.
Right,
It's grandfathered and allowed by right.
right,
I think we're better off being a little bit more lenient, so it requires site plan review. That if it's sensible to the community, it fits the neighborhood, people don't object, it's a positive influence in the town, we should allow it.
with input from the neighbors, that everyone likes the use, instead of just being like, no, 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 no.
So I think a few years ago, there wouldn't be such a position on the planet. But I don't know, I really honestly don't know, but I'm very excited about what we
There's so many home-based
do
businesses.
together in the year or years ahead. And that this
You're on one-
comprehensive
just
plan
like
will be very helpful and useful.
Yeah, I think what this does is it tease the town, there's no magic answer. But
Right.
what it does is tee up this conversation. And what I would say is clear that some zoning regulations may need to change in terms of commercial and potentially residential.
Yeah.
What you can do, and it's very clearly laid out in the comp plan, I think it's a slam dunk for you guys to get a grant to then over the next year do some visioning. So like say, okay, here's, if this is exit 35, here are some potential scenarios of how we could rezone this. And really like do some drawings of what different residential, commercial could look like if it was mixed use, or what some of the larger commercial uses could look like in that area. And then talk about the taxes that, build the story to then bring it to town meeting. You gotta build the case first. And so you could, you could say, if these commercial uses were to go here, it could generate X taxes. This is the impact it could have on the schools. This is, this, even if it's housing, how could that impact the schools? Because that will come up at town meetings, that question. And so we could get that kind of evidence and that argument kind of ready to go and then repeat and summarize that town meeting. Sorry. So I'm hoping this is a tool to get you guys further along those lines.
Okay. All right, Megan, thank you so much for this presentation and all the work you and your team, because I know you've got a
Yes,
team
not just
behind you on
me.
this. So we look forward to the continuing refinement of this plan.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
And again, remind me when we think the final,
So we have grant funding until June 30th.
okay,
So it'll have to be done by then. So we'll have a public comment period after and during the open houses to make sure we get everyone's feedback incorporated into the plan. And then we'll bring it to you near the end of June at a planning board meeting for you to approve or accept it. Okay.
all right,
All right.
thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, so, we're done with that. We're about ready to wrap up. I wanna put out there for thinking, we're gonna meet on May 5th, week from today, to continue the public hearing on battery storage. It is my desire, my hope, because I will be away, that we will not have any other meetings in May, so that we won't have a regular meeting on the 26th of May, which would be just before town meeting anyway.
So next week should be. Yeah, some people will show up, hopefully,
Yeah,
and it should be fairly quick.
yeah, so what I'm hoping is that we will just review the changes made by town council since the last draft that was posted for the public hearing.
Yep.
And then take any other comments. And I'll say, like, my position is that we wanna have a vote. We wanna hear whatever comments. I mean, I don't think there are any showstoppers at this point.
I would think so.
I think anything, any significant suggestions about. I mean, obviously the public hearing, I don't wanna prejudge whatever might
Yeah.
be said, but I think in an ideal world, we get some comments. But we don't, at best, we simply make notes
We don't
for the
reinvent the
future,
wheel.
we don't reinvent the wheel, because what's gonna have to happen is, we have to have a vote. To take a position. On the battery storage and the solar bylaw package.
Yeah.
And then I have to put together, I'm already gonna start drafting up the report to, the select board. That will carry our recommendation, and that report will also be given to voters at town meeting. And that'll be, it, then there'll be annual town meeting in June, and then I'm hoping and expecting that. The 30th of June, would be our next regularly scheduled. Planning board meeting will meet again, and it'll be that date when a number of our terms are expiring and we're going.
Oh, yeah, so we're gonna
Stagger in a way that makes sense.
I can take the 2-year term.
Yeah, I'd probably take a 3-year term and, you know, so we wanna space out the,
Alex Silver might not wanna be
okay.
just gonna wanna be.
Okay, so have that
I
conversation.
don't know if that's a fact,
Okay.
that's Alex.
A quick report from
Yeah.
AdCom on,
Yes,
I did hand everyone a copy of the draft of for the water.
yes.
section. And my, so my.
Hold on, because that can wait for the continuation of the public hearing on that,
Sure, yep.
right? So I think it would be,
There's no big anything to tell, so.
yeah, okay, but I'd like to hear
Okay,
that
yep,
said during your continued public hearing.
good enough.
Okay, that
Yep.
sounds good. All right, any other, I don't know if there's anything, like,
You had asked me to look into, whether the Board of Assessors had access or knowledge of where all wells.
oh, yes.
Don't, we have nothing, although, if you wanted to put in a well, you could get a permit online, but bottom line is.
Does the Board of Assessors tag each parcel with whether it has access to public water?
Well, no. That's.
That's your next step.
And I think that Hilltown Health District. When you drill a well, and I believe since. You know, as far back as I know, you have, when you drill a well, you have to get a permit and you have to show where it's going to be.
So that would be through FERC, we might be able to.
Yeah, so I'm assuming there has to be some, like the well drilling company has to drill it where you said it was gonna be. If that makes sense.
It's just, it
And
walked
you-
right into, I'm sorry.
Do you think it has a geotag, like?
No, but like ours is for the barn that we just built, and this, I just did it, so that's why. I had to measure off of the corner of where the house septic was, and then I. Literally hand drew them a picture with distances,
I
as that
see.
was acceptable, so
I see,
it may
yeah.
not be perfect, but
Right,
like. The well is in this area,
okay,
if that makes sense.
And I will say, I was a little surprised that the Board of Assessors would not have this knowledge because it speaks directly to the value.
yeah,
of property.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
it's just, I guess, by property owner attestation.
You would think that, but you know, I'm somewhat new, not new, I'm about a year in now, so, okay, that's, so I'll try to get you the other information.
I'm gonna ask you one other Board of Assessor question.
Oh, sure.
Is it, is it possible to get the assessment data
Online.
essentially in an Excel spreadsheet format for analysis? Just ask that question, like, it's all in a database, could that be just dumped out in a format that could be loaded into Excel?
That shows.
Alright, cause then I could do certain things, some analysis.
You used to have all of the data
Cause it's all
online.
public.
It's all other
records.
different, all the data
But
online
I think,
as to what your properties were,
Yeah.
that's all online on the website. But to give me that again, the data, Excel spreadsheet, okay,
yeah, okay,
that'd be interesting.
it would be, okay, I think then somebody.
I would make a
some person
motion
could
to
make a
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and the motion has been made, do I hear a second? JD
Second.
seconded, so made by Mike. And all in favor?
Alright.
All right, we are adjourned until May 5th at 5:30 PM. Thank you all very much for all that you do.